of SV LATAM Capital. So thank you for joining us, Consuelo.
Thank you, Sergio, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, of course. So so for the audience, just so you don't know, give a little background of Consuelo. So graduated from the University of Miami, studied at Stanford University, also got her master's in science from Tecnología de Monterrey, and then also started her PhD in genomics, which we'll hear a little bit more about. Has ample experience as a founder, turned investor, and with a heavy emphasis on Latin America. So on fun too. So thank you for joining us today, Consuelo, for all of that. And if you can share with the audience, what is SV LATAM Capital?
Yeah, so SV LATAM Capital, it's an early stage venture capital firm based in San Francisco that was born with a unique interest to invest to have a focus on Latin America, and we invest in science and technology enabled startups to transform society's environment and health on a global scale. So we have teams in each of these pillars. And of course, we have the SV for Silicon Valley, LATAM, Latin America.
Awesome. And what, and if you can share a little bit on what types of startups do you look for in terms of, what size check, and what are those focus areas?
Yeah, so for us, we focus on the problems. So we are pretty broad in our investment strategy. You can think like that. But for us, what it's important is that we think that technology has progressed. It's evolving drastically has been evolving drastically over the past 20 years and continues to do so. And also with the convergence of technologies, this is a great time to focus on solving very important, difficult problems. This is a year that I think with the pandemic, it has brought to the light to many, and even the ones that weren't aware how important it is to focus on problems that even we're not very conscious about them on our everyday lives. It can really impact the world. I continue to be surprised, about how much our world has changed. When you go out on a walk and see people with masks and so many restaurants closed and read, like in San Francisco Financial District and Soma, the credit card transactions are down more than 85%. So imagine it's like what's going to happen, real estate, all this huge impact with a problem that, was there underneath, that we're at risk always to have a pandemic in every decade we have this situation. So in the society pillar, we focused on financial inclusion and future work. Strengthening SMEs included there, and health is treatment of chronic disease and access to diagnostics. And in the environment pillar, anything around climate, so food that impacts climate, a lot with food, agriculture, and we have done water and energy efficiency as well.
Amazing. And what size of investments do you usually make?
Yes, so we're considered a micro VC fund. So for us, every investment, it's very important also because our portfolio construction model is that we don't do like 30 investments per fund like other early stage funds. So we do with fund 2, we'll do around 15 investments. So every single investment, we concentrate a lot of the risks. So our ticket size depends on if we're leading that round and how much we look for ownership. So we have written checks that go probably the smallest around 200,000 to the highest $1.5 million. So it's a broad spectrum, but also because we invest in different verticals. So for example, we're in therapeutics, small molecules. So that might require a little bit more capital. And also if we lead a round, then it implies that we have to write a larger check, which is very different than when we're coming in at the pre-seed, for example, stage and writing the first check.
And for you, how did you go from starting your PhD to now being an investor? Well, what can you walk us through a little bit of your journey?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of connection there. I think I've always been a contrarian, I think, and I see myself as an entrepreneur, even as a VC. I think I have way more that hat. I've also had to build my firm, like building a company, and I've also had to form a team and everything it implies for raising and the rest. And when I got out of college and I moved back to Mexico, I I applied to several job postings that were in the newspaper for electronic engineers, and it specifically, the requirement was like 25 years and older and gender male. So I didn't fit in any of those two criteria. So I never got a job, and that was a great thing that actually happened. I didn't realize back then, but I had to start my first tech company because I still remember when my dad was like, "Yeah, but there are so many things you can do." I'm like, "Yeah, but I didn't study electrical engineering with electronics just to do whatever. So this is what I want to do." And that's how I started my first tech company, which, now that I look back, it was a great thing. And that really impacted, I think, the future of where I would end. The PhD in genomics, it was more out of curiosity because, after the year 2000, when the human genome was sequenced, and I started reading a lot, and I read a couple of books that were really interesting, and I thought, wow, I wish I could go back to school. Now that two things that I really like, biology and computer science, kind of converging. I had done a master's in computer science, and a scientist, a very prestigious scientist, had moved back to Mexico from Johns Hopkins, and he was founding the National Genomics Institute of Mexico. So when I was having this conversation with him that I wanted to get into bioinformatics, he told me, "Why don't you join the PhD program?" And even though my background, I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't know, I don't have a biology background," and that was precisely what they were looking for. So it was more out of that curiosity, and I thought it would be great to be in touch, in contact with them, because I wanted that institute to be also in my hometown. And that's exactly the time when I wanted to get into ventures. So that has been in my mind for a while, when it wasn't the time at all back in Mexico. But I always felt that I needed to be way more prepared. Like, I think it happens a lot to women, or maybe also diverse founders in general, that we think we're not qualified enough. And I think that's why I have more degrees probably than what I would need to, or I don't know, like I have 2 masters in science, then the PhD, when I actually didn't at the time. It wasn't like I wanted to get that degree. And then I thought, when I wanted to start the fund, I'm like, yeah, I'm not ready. So I applied for the Kaufman Fellows, joined, and completed the fellowship. So you always think that you need something else. And I have other smaller things there, like executive programs and all that. But yes, so that's kind of the story. Yeah.
That's great. And uh, after you did the Kaufman Fellowship, how did you go from I'm ready to be a VC to starting your own fund? What were some of the things that helped you land that first fund one?
Yes. So when I moved to San Francisco in 2006, the intention was to start a life sciences firm focused on Latin America, mainly Mexico. But I was going to join a startup first, and then I would transition into founding that fund with another friend. But then in 2008, kind of the recession happened, and all that got delayed. And I started a software development company with engineers based in Mexico. And I was working a lot with startups based in the Bay Area. And that kind of gave me that exposure to entrepreneurs that were coming to Silicon Valley from all over. And I thought that that was kind of like the right timing to start a fund in 2012, because they were not finding. It was still the time when the large VC firms were still investing around the 50-mile radius kind of thing. So I thought, well, entrepreneurs are already coming here, so we could be that fund. And so that's the moment. And I applied then at the Kaufman Fellows. So I actually started the fund when I was starting the around the time when I started also the fellowship. And I wish, I remember those days. I thought, like, I really need to learn everything, like, how to run a fund every day. on a daily basis. So yeah, at the end you just get to learn once you do it, but the fellowship was a great program, and it has given me a lot, and I, it has been, I'm very grateful for that part. Yeah.
And were you a solo GP at that point?
No, so well, yes. At the very beginning, when like when an entrepreneur, same way, you go like, oh, okay, I want to build this. Except that in venture and being, Mexican, Latina, I'm like, there's no way. You always hear like you need to be the first time venture, you need to have a partner. There's like no way you can be a solo GP. So I literally went like desperate looking for a partner, and like, please, someone, can you become my co-founder in this thing? And it was really hard. Like I met even friends from before, that they really loved what I was trying, aiming to build. However, they had like really good jobs, or they had families. Same story probably with entrepreneurs. So we couldn't afford salaries. Like when you start a fund, it's like you just don't have, and you don't know when. Because it might take 2 years to raise a fund, from formation to raising a first time fund, especially like in the situation I was before, as one of probably the first Mexican woman for sure in Mexico to start a fund in venture. So it was it became really hard. So Angelica Blenstrup, who she was, I met at Stanford when I took some executive education courses there. I met her. She was teaching some of those, and she joined as a GP, but later on switched to venture partner. But in reality, I've been like the solo managing partner since Fund One. Yeah.
Awesome. And I think many people don't realize that. They think venture capital and they think everybody's automatically rich, and that, at least for early stage fund managers, you're not making any money
No.
until you close that first fund. So it's good for you to.
Yes, and it is really hard. I remember it was a summer. I remember June in Mexico, fundraising, and my husband was like, wow, this is being really hard. Maybe you should think if it's time to quit with the fundraising. And I was like, no, I have never considered quitting. And I remember reading this book about venture capital when I saw that of all the people that in the US back then, that went out to raise a fund, 90% failed raising a fund. And I was like, wow, so it's generally hard, not only hard for me.
Yep, absolutely.
So then kind of I'm like, okay, I'll keep on going. So, yeah.
That's great. And then how much was that Fund One?
Fund One was it was a Mexican. It was a Mexican fund, because I did apply for a program that was a new program back then in Mexico from the National Institute of Entrepreneurship and the Development Bank of Mexico. And their investments, because it's public funding and from the national bank, they cannot do investments in foreign currency. So their investment, and it was a Mexican vehicle. So long story short, it was the equivalent of $8 million back then. But the peso did lose value during, the Trump era, from, all that time. And it became probably around $7 or $6 million.
But still, that's significant. So that's why I tell also a lot of first time fund managers as well, is like, even what is it, Andreesen Horowitz, they started out with 4 million, and you hear it over and over, people starting out with 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And that's as a first fund, and that's a normal occurrence.
Yeah, if you look at some of the great investments, the checks that they wrote, if you look at some of the investments, for example, from Chris Sacca or even Sequoia, the check they wrote for Airbnb, the very first check was $600K. Y Combinator, okay, it's an accelerator, 20K to invest in Airbnb. So you can make great things with smaller checks.
Yeah.
Small funds.
Yeah, I love it. And as to take a step back also and looking at your fund, because you focus on, the biotech, healthcare, many VCs shy away from biotech. So can you talk about why you focus on biotech, and how do you evaluate those early stage investments?
Yeah, so we have a methodology of how we make our investment decisions that allows us, I think, helps us a lot in making both good investments and being able to invest across sectors, which is called decision analysis. It's a framework that we have adapted, and most of what I've learned comes from I've learned from a lot of it from Clint Corvell and Miriam Rivera at Ulu Ventures. And I read this paper when I was at the Kaufman Fellow Program, and Clint had written it for the Kaufman Fellow Press. And that has been extremely useful. So, we're not wired to make the best decisions. We're wired to make the fastest and easiest decisions of human beings. We tend to be very binary. Either should I go here or not, or should I move or not? Should I buy a house or not? It's kind of very binary. And this allows you to make way better decisions, to put a number to your judgment. And that's what we use. And that's, I think, in a big way, how we can do investments across the board. The biotech focus, it's I like life sciences a lot from way back. And in Mexico, for almost 6 years, I was head, and I had to form the Office of Innovation, Science, and Technology in a state that has the largest concentration of research centers of scientists outside Mexico City. And it's very strong in life sciences, and Mexico actually got very early into biotech. As early, the National Biotech Institute was founded around 1981, so very, very close to when Genentech launched here. And the founder of the institute was part of the founding team of Genentech, and he moved back to Mexico after a couple of years. So my interest comes from there, and I think now it's a great time. You can invest in a biotech startup therapeutics, and you don't have it costs much less, than what it used to with drug discovery platforms and ways more efficient. We have seen how vaccines have been with Moderna, Bion, and AstraZeneca with Oxford University, and so many companies developing vaccines much more quickly. Of course, they had a lot of technology in the pipeline, but still is way faster. And now we can do with the convergence of technology. So we have therapeutics startups, and some very good ones in our portfolio, and you are able now to invest. But I think a lot of VCs shy of it because it's like, okay, I don't know about it, and you can become really good at looking at something. Yes, it makes it more complicated when you have to look at, let's say, a startup in the food tech space, and then you can also analyze one in small molecule therapeutics, and then a medical device, and then you could be looking at the fintech. So it can be overwhelming, but our team, some of the strongest principles is that among the strongest principles is that there's more opportunity in the unknown than in what we know. So I think from there, we're always learning. So I think one of the best things about venture, apart from working with entrepreneurs that are wanting to transform the world and make it better, I think it's also that we are always learning. I think that's one of the best things. Yeah.
One thing I think about, especially with biotech, is that it feels binary, right? If you invest in a biotherapeutics and it doesn't do well, then you don't get anything. Versus if it goes, becomes, if it actually becomes a drug, then you make out. So for you, are you investing in some of the drugs, or are you think about like the infrastructure and technology that expedites the process? Like, how do you think about the opportunity?
Yeah, so for example, one company in Fund 2, it's called Genie Life Sciences, and it's small molecules therapeutics. So when we invested, they literally had a molecule, but they went through a drug discovery process where they looked at 50,000, they end up selecting from 50,000 compounds, you come down to one. And now they are about to start, they're getting into humans, doing phase 1. So this happened in 1 year, imagine. From one molecule and animal, rat studies only. I mean, not to remove any merit. What did non-human primates, passed, all toxicology, all that stuff, and now getting, the approval to get into humans. That happened in a year. in any other market, I mean, if you still have to get market, market fit, you have to pass early stage, crossing the chasm, mass market, you still have to do things. So in therapeutics, you have to go through, the FDA approvals and all that. But you also, there are always challenges and stages that, vary. If you change the label and the requirement, you need the approval of the FDA or regulatory bodies. But in the other, you need the approval of, the early adopters, and you need to cross the chasm. So you still need all those things. And if a molecule fails, it is, you typically apply for an orphan disease, or, like how can you accelerate the FDA approval? If it doesn't work for some disease, you could try, depending on where it failed and all that, you can apply for another thing. And now you have a pipeline, because of drug discovery, it's not one molecule only, like it used to be very binary. Now you have dozens of molecules that you're looking at for many different applications. And it doesn't mean that we will be investing in every single, or any therapeutic startup would be a candidate for us, for example. There's a lot going on also in oncology. Medical devices, I find it very, very interesting. You can really build a very good company in 4 or 5 years to an exit. So it is every single space. It can be difficult in venture. Even enterprise software, it can take years. So I think, and they say, yeah, but it takes much more money. Not now. I think I've seen what it's built. And later on, yes, you need a lot of capital once you have reach a certain or pass reach certain milestones, then you will get there. But I think it's a great opportunity to invest in biotech.
I really like your analogy to the early stage venture crossing the chasm to the drug either performing or not performing, right? Like because if it does, you still have to cross the chasm, right? You still have to hit hit a mass market, where for a drug, if it passes, it's gonna hit the mass market because of the distribution channel. So I like the way that the risk is just in a different spot in the process.
Exactly.
Right?
You don't need to get to mass market with a biotech startup. I mean, you can become the next multi-billion-dollar pharma company if you want to, but you can be acquired. You can have an IPO even after, just with an IND, depending on where you are. But I think the challenge is if you just change the labels, I've seen it. I think that's also the beauty of investing across sectors, that you look at something, software, that's supposed to be very easy and scalable, and it's not, and it can take a lot of capital also. When I compare it with another biotech, I can compare an enterprise software opportunity with a biotech opportunity. Yeah.
That's it. I love it, and thank you for that, for the decision analysis framework that we had Miriam on before, and talking about their work. So I'm glad it's being absorbed and useful in the industry. Have to push to raise the bar. As you look forward in the at this space, what are the trends that get you most excited? What are the white spaces that you're looking for startups in?
I think I love the time right now, that the opportunity that it's opening up in the climate space. I think that's great. There are many ways that I think now that hopefully we can heal the planet in some sort of way. And I think that we can also make a lot of money and provide very good returns to investors by investing in things that are also good for the planet, for instance. So I think that's a huge opportunity there. It comes also, we have seen it from the food tech angle, but I think also from other angles. We're looking at companies, for example, in the waste management space. I think that there are also some great opportunities. Materials, water as well. I think that's good. And of course, health. I think we have seen how much health is how important health is. Without health, it's difficult to have economies going and people thriving and going to the movies and games and everything else, and even schools. So I think health will continue, to be very important, of course.
Great. And for the entrepreneurs that are getting, that are out there, um, can you share a little bit of light um, in it sounds I didn't hear the word impact, right? But part of the reason I reached out to you is because we like to pull VCs and entrepreneurs that are focusing on making a positive change in the world, but also like you said, making money. Can you share a little bit of how you see I wouldn't say, to layman's terms, they say impact investing space, but I call it like double bottom line investing, like the for profit, but also purpose driven.
Yes, so I don't come from the impact investment world, and I know that you're supposed to measure things and the SDG and all that stuff. And I've been many times I've been in pitches, especially in Scandinavia, where I was pitching, and LPs who invest in funds, they were saying, "Oh, so you're impact." I'm like, "No, we're not impact. It looks like impact, but we're not impact." They're like, "Yeah, but you're no, because we don't measure anything." No, but it doesn't matter. So like, yeah, but you need to know all these things, and I didn't want to. When I was starting the firm, I saw that back then, at least, what I was looking at, there was a lower financial return bar for impact funds. So that's the part I didn't like. And I was like, oh, okay, no, I want to invest, in problems and all that, and have above, top quartile performance. So that has been my focus. I think venture should be like that. I think we shouldn't have to distinguish its impact or not. I don't think we have ever had this amazing opportunity and so spread that we can be investing in so many areas and make a lot of money and do good for the planet, for society. So I think I actually find it a little bit hard not to do that part. It's harder, maybe, or maybe because I have that lens. So I don't come from that world, but I do think that I'm very focused on the problems. It's like problem solver and big markets. Yeah.
But and also you're focused on these big market problems, but you're also focused on SV LATAM. So most of your investments, can you talk about like how do you bound your like how do you develop depth, right, and focus? Like what for you are you focus on? Do you focus on certain countries in Latin America? Do you consider companies that are coming from Latin America to the US? Like, can you talk a little bit more about that specific thesis?
Yes. What does LATAM mean in our name? So first, we're like, okay, we can capture entrepreneurs from Latin America that are already coming to Silicon Valley. It's not like we have to go to Argentina, Chile, Colombia, and all over the place. And yes, that's one source. So what we see Latin America is for three things. It's talent, it's a large market, and it's an opportunity also for partnerships because of the investors that, the LPs that have invested across our funds. So every opportunity doesn't have to have the three, so it could be the talent that someone is from Latin America. For example, an entrepreneur from Costa Rica that is now here, and Latinos, we connect, through part of it, the Spanish language and so many cultural things that we just connect much easier on our networks. But it doesn't have to be like that, like the therapeutics, Genie Life Sciences. Their market is global. The entrepreneur is originally from India. So what's the Latin American component, you might say, and the reason we're able to get into some opportunities is because of the relationships and the partnerships that we bring from the region. Like the largest pharmaceutical company in Mexico. It's one of our LPs, and that provides also, they have 19 manufacturing plants and lots of infrastructure in several countries. And in terms of countries, the main focus has been Mexico because I'm originally from there, and also Mexico is so close to the US geographically, and it's kind of like the door to Latin America in many ways. And entrepreneurs from Costa Rica or from Colombia or even Chile, they want to and look at expansion into Mexico. Mexicans don't necessarily look to expanding into other markets. And for markets, there are many things that you can have the Mexican or Latin American market, and the talent is also Latin American, but it's not a good fit for us. Why? Because of this decision analysis that model that we look for a probability weighted multiple on investment is really hard to pass that very well. So we need large markets. And we also assess the risk part. So Latin America, where we would invest and are investing in startups that are only focused on a particular market in LATAM, or LATAM is fintech and many things around e-commerce that we have done. For example, Justo, which is e-groceries, or Mercado Barrio in Brazil. Also, now it was our first investment in Brazil, Mercado Barrio, which are like corner shops, a chain of corner shops and virtual with all the infrastructure. And yeah, but for example, for a biotech startup to come out of Mexico, and if they were only going to focus in Mexico, that wouldn't be a good match for us.
Thank you. No, that was good. And appreciate you giving some of that color. And for I know you're you guys have launched Fund 2, you're making investments. What's next for SV LATAM Capital?
Yes, so this year we made we're right now we're going through our 9th investment of Fund 2. So next year we'll close with 15 investments. I think we have an amazing, the two funds have been great, but I think that Fund 2 is looking really, really, really good. And it will be getting ready, growing the team as we prepare for Fund 3. As VCs, we're also always fundraising like entrepreneurs. And yeah, it's getting ready, and it also takes time, to grow the team, and it's a very important, I think, decision, and it has to be a good fit, and the alignment. For us, it's really important to be in alignment, values and principles with entrepreneurs. Our investors are limited partners, and also among the team members of SV LATAM Capital.
Beautiful. So you are looking for a role for those that are interested. The link to SV LATAM Capital is in the podcast notes. So thank you, Consuelo, for joining us tonight. So for everyone watching, this was Rebel One Live. Please tune in. We interview amazing VCs and CEOs weekly to share their story and highlight them and their progress. So thanks again, Consuelo, for joining us.
Thank you very much.